Welcome to the deep dive. We take a whole stack of sources, pull out the key stuff, and basically give you a shortcut to getting up to speed without all the overwhelm. Today, we're digging into Le Two. That's the Chinese translation of Rich Habits by Thomas C. Corley. The subtitle is something like Uncovering the Fundamental Differences Between Rich and Poor. 27 Rich Habits That Determine Your Lifelong Wealth.
Yeah, and this isn't just theory. Corley did some serious legwork. It was a 5-year study.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah, he surveyed 233 millionaires, and get this, 177 were self-made.
Okay, so not just inherited wealth.
Exactly. And he compared their habits, like their daily routines, to 128 people who were, struggling financially. Our goal today is really to unpack the big differences he found.
In their behaviors, how they communicate.
And just their core thinking patterns. It's fascinating stuff.
Definitely. And this is really for you, our listener, especially if you're someone who likes to learn fast. You appreciate those aha moments, and you want to get right to the core of things without fluff.
Right. We know you want the insights.
So let's dive in. Where did this all start for Corley? Apparently, he was a CPA, a CFP.
Advising businesses, individuals.
And he had this one client who looked successful, on the surface, but was actually really struggling with money. That puzzle kind of got him thinking.
So he developed this survey, just 20 questions.
And started giving it to his clients, the wealthy ones and the less wealthy ones.
And the results were pretty eye-opening. Huge differences in just daily habits.
It wasn't like complex investment strategies at first, right? It was the small stuff.
Exactly. These little routine things that seem to really correlate with, well, being rich or poor. A real pattern emerged.
Okay, let's get into those patterns. First up, health consciousness. Seems basic, maybe.
But the numbers were stark. He found 76% of the millionaires did regular aerobic exercise.
Like 20, 30 minutes, most days of the week.
Yeah, 4+ days a week, things like running, walking, cycling, swimming. Nothing crazy.
Okay. And the comparison group?
Much lower percentage. Plus, 75% of the rich actively avoided fast food.
So what's the thinking there?
Well, it suggests this kind of long-term view, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They see health as an asset.
Right, like fuel for productivity, energy.
Exactly. It affects everything down the line. So it's less about just looking good today and more about investing in their future well-being.
Yeah.
A prioritization.
That makes total sense. An investment in yourself. Okay, what else? Reading habits. This one was huge.
So massive. 85% of the rich read 2 or more books a month.
2 books a month.
And 88% read for at least 30 minutes every single day.
Wow. And what were they reading? Not just beach novels, I'm guessing.
Definitely not. 51% read history, 55% self-improvement.
Okay.
58% read biographies of successful people, and almost 79% read stuff directly related to learning, their work, their interests.
So it's intentional reading, learning focus.
Absolutely. It ties into this bigger theme of continuous learning, expanding their knowledge, getting different perspectives, learning from others' successes and failures too.
Feeding that curiosity.
Right. It's deliberate growth.
So it's not just reading, it's what and why. Got it. Okay, let's talk networking.
Another big differentiator. 86% of the wealthy made a point to associate with people who could sort of help them reach their goals.
Like-minded people,
Yeah.
people striving for similar things.
Exactly. It highlights how important your social circle is. It's not passive. It's actively building relationships.
Curating your network, you could say.
Yeah. Finding people who offer support, advice, maybe even opportunities. People who propel you forward.
Right, surrounding yourself with that positive, ambitious energy. Okay, decision-making. How did that compare?
Significant difference here too. 91% of the rich tended to make their own business decisions fairly quickly.
Quickly, not agonizing over it.
Less agonizing, more acting. And crucially, they accepted the consequences, win or lose. They avoided getting bogged down in, analysis paralysis.
So a bias towards action.
Seems like it. Taking calculated risks, making the call, and then learning from whatever happens rather than just thinking about it forever.
Okay, now this next one might surprise some people. Etiquette.
Yeah, you might not immediately connect manners with wealth, but 75% of the rich sent thank you notes. Holiday greetings, too.
Simple stuff like, please, thank you, may I?
Exactly. And being attentive in conversations, remembering important dates, birthdays, anniversaries.
And avoiding negativity.
Right. Less criticism, condemnation, complaining.
So what's the underlying principle there?
It seems to be about fundamental respect in social interactions, building positive relationships.
Like social capital.
Yeah, think about it. Consistent politeness, thoughtfulness, It just creates a better environment around you, fosters goodwill, strengthens connections. These things matter over time.
They really do. Okay, another key area, passion.
Huge. 82% of the rich were actively pursuing interests they were passionate about.
And Corley saw passion as, like, fuel.
Yes, fuel for perseverance, which he identified as a critical trait for success.
Because if you love what you're doing, you'll stick with it through the tough times.
Exactly. That intrinsic motivation helps you push through the inevitable roadblocks. It powers that long-term commitment.
Makes sense. And connecting to that, goal setting.
Also key. 55% of the rich had spent at least a year focused on achieving one single major goal.
A whole year on one thing. That's focus.
It really is. It shows the importance of having clear direction and just sticking with it. Sustained effort towards a meaningful target, not just jumping around.
Right. And one last behavioral point, saying no.
The wealthy were better at it. They understood that turning down things, requests, opportunities that didn't align with their main goals was crucial.
A time management tool, essentially.
Exactly. Protecting their time, their energy, their focus. It's strategic prioritization. You choose what not to do so you have resources for what really matters.
Okay, that covers some key behaviors. Let's shift to communication strategies. The first one you mentioned was avoiding gossip.
Yeah, 94% of the rich steered clear of it.
Why is that so important?
Well, it aligns with that focus on building strong networks.
Yeah.
Gossip is usually negative.
Tears people down.
Right, and it damages trust, undermines relationships. Why would you do that if your goal is to build reliable connections?
Good point. Okay, this next one is interesting. Birthday calls.
Yeah, 80% of the wealthy made a point to call important people on their birthdays.
They saw it as, what, a life support system for relationships?
That's the phrase Corley used. And apparently, about a quarter of those calls actually led to the other person reaching back out later. Reciprocity.
So it's a proactive way to nurture connections.
Definitely. Shows you value the person, strengthens the bond. Small gesture, potentially big relational return.
And similar to that, check-in calls?
Also around 80%. Just calling people they wanted to maintain strong ties with, not necessarily for a specific reason.
Just to connect.
Yeah, stay in touch. And often, these calls were also a way to, gather useful information just through casual conversation. Keep the lines open.
You never know what you might learn.
Exactly.
And what about during big life moments?
They were more likely to make congratulatory calls than to births, promotions, things like that.
And the idea is that this strengthens the emotional connection.
Right. Corley called it creating a protective layer for the relationship. Reaching out during those significant times shows real support, deepens the bond.
Builds that emotional resonance. Okay. Last communication point. Thinking before speaking.
Another really high number here. 94% of the rich didn't just, say whatever popped into their heads.
Especially on important stuff.
Right. They practiced more thoughtful communication. Paused, considered their words.
Aiming for more effective interaction, less misunderstanding.
Exactly. Quality over quantity in communication. Intentionality.
Okay, let's move on to the thinking patterns themselves. This feels foundational.
It really is. A core difference was belief in self. 79% of the rich believed they could actually escape poverty or climb from the middle class to wealth.
They believed it was possible for them.
Yeah. And tied to that, 90% rejected the idea of fate. They believed they were in control of their own lives, their own destiny.
That internal locus of control, that's huge.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
If you believe you have agency, you're motivated to act. If you think it's all fate, well, why bother?
Right. You're less likely to take those steps. What about intelligence versus hard work?
Interesting one. 90% of the rich believed hard work was more important than high IQ.
So effort over innate ability.
That's what it suggests. Talent helps, sure, but consistent effort, dedication, perseverance. That's what they saw as the real driver, putting in the hours.
Okay. And persistence seemed linked to luck.
Yeah, 92% believe that by persistently pursuing their passions, they actually created their own good luck.
Created luck. How does that work?
It's about the opportunities that arise because you're putting in sustained effort. Corley found it took, on average, 12 years for these folks to become wealthy.
12 years.
Yeah. So luck wasn't just random chance. It was encountering opportunities that wouldn't have existed if they hadn't been working towards something specific for so long.
Sticking with it increases your surface area for lucky breaks, maybe?
That's a good way to put it.
What about optimism?
Played a role. 54% of the rich believed optimism was key to their success.
Just over half. Still significant.
A positive outlook helps with resilience. Right. Seeing possibilities instead of just problems makes you more willing to tackle challenges.
Yeah, keeps you going. And emotionally.
Emotional control was important. 81% made a conscious effort to manage negative emotions. Anger, jealousy, resentment.
Why? Just to be pleasant.
Well, partly yes, for comfortable interactions, but also for rational decision-making. Letting negative feelings run the show can really derail things, personally and professionally.
True. And finally, honesty.
Very highly valued. 85% believe truthfulness was absolutely essential.
For building trust.
Exactly. Trust is the foundation, isn't it? For business deals, for strong relationships, for long-term success, honesty builds that credibility.
Okay, so those are the habits, the communication styles, the thinking patterns, but the book doesn't just list them, right? It offers a way forward.
Right. It introduces the Rich Habits program.
Yeah.
It's designed to help people actually implement these things.
How so? What does it cover?
All sorts of practical stuff.
Sure.
How to figure out your life goals, raise successful kids, find mentors, actually change your habits.
Okay.
Understand different ways people become wealthy, create that good luck we talked about, how to build wealth even as an employee, diversifying income.
Wow, comprehensive.
Yeah, even touches on the neuroscience of habit formation, increasing IQ, extending lifespan.
Yeah.
And it outlines 10 core rich habits commitments.
And Corley uses stories to make it more concrete.
Yes, exactly. Brief anecdotes. There's Phoenix Appleman, an insurance salesman really struggling, can't afford college for his son, who gets pointed towards this program.
Yeah.
Then there's Dee, a secretary about to lose her job due to bad habits, lateness, who also finds the program. A car dealer, Herbreiser, facing bankruptcy.
Gets connected too.
Yeah. And G.C. Jobs, who is Corley himself, basically. His own life experiences, particularly losing his wife, partly due to financial stress affecting her care, drove him to do the research and create the program.
That adds a really personal layer.
It does. And there's even a story about a veteran client, someone with gambling issues, spending problems, who apparently turned his whole life around in 30 days just by following the plan. Stopped gambling, set goals, improved his health, even his marriage.
30 days is fast, but it shows the potential impact.
Exactly. These stories just illustrate how these habits aren't just ideas, they're practical tools that can genuinely lead to change for real people in tough situations.
They make it relatable, show transformation is possible.
Tangible results from adopting these habits.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive here, the core message from Corley seems pretty clear.
Yeah, that wealth and success are less about luck, less about genius IQ.
And much more about the consistent daily habits you build.
Right. Across all these areas, health, reading, networking, decisions, communication, your whole mindset.
And by understanding these differences, these patterns that Corley identified.
You, our listener, get a really practical framework, a new lens to look at your own habits and maybe see a clearer path to your own goals, whatever they may be.
It offers a blueprint, in a way.
A blueprint based on observed behaviors, yeah.
All right, that leads us to our final thought for you today. Listening to all this, all these rich habits, which one really jumped out at you? Which one resonates the most right now? And maybe more importantly, what's one tiny doable thing you could start today, like right now, to nudge yourself in that direction?
Yeah, don't try to change everything at once.
Exactly. Just think about how those small daily actions, the kind Corley talks about, the kind that seem insignificant on their own, how they can add up over time.
That compounding effect.
Like we saw with Phoenix, D. Herb.
And that veteran client.
Yeah.
It really is about starting small, being consistent, and letting those positive changes build on each other. It's something to think about.